השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם, ברית עולם, ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, עוד היא לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, עוד היא לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ביני ובין בני ישראל, עוד היא לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, עוד היא לעולם. אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו למדת, אותנו למדת. כן אדוני אלוהינו לשבתנו ולקומנו, נשיח בכבודך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ומצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו, ובהם נגן בלילה, נגן יומם ולילה. באהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Inclusivity. It's in our DNA here at Congregation Micah. What does it really mean? It's our policy and practice of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for all people, especially those who might be otherwise excluded or marginalized. It's why we welcome those who intermarry and treat all people with equal worth, regardless of their color, economic status, appearance, and/or sexual orientation.
It's also why we provide aid in our schools for different types of learners. History is a constant reminder of what it was like for Jews to be sidelined, ostracized, and targeted for hate. And our namesake, the prophet Micah, teaches us to seek justice, love mercy, and march humbly. So Nashville's Jewish community is showing its support for the LGBTQ community at Nashville Pride 2022. We will have a booth at the festival, and for the first time since COVID, we will be marching in the parade.
Join us, Congregation Micah, Saturday, June 25th at 10 a.m. at the Bicentennial Capitol Mall State Park.
Ay, טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So for 4 more weeks, 4 more times, this being one of them, Miss Lisa Silver will sit at that perch and lead us in song and prayer. Let's get an awe. Yeah. So what we're doing is it's like a farewell tour. We're pulling out all the musicians. So Russell's here on the piano for us, making an appearance, adding to our joy. And the world is kind of tough. I know we're in need of some joy, and we're going to get there tonight. But in the wake of these now really multiple tragedies, the fight to end gun violence has really never been more urgent. So this weekend is Wear Orange Weekend. Look what I got. It's very inexpensive at Home Depot. So we wear orange largely because it's a shocking color. It's the color that hunters wear so that they don't get shot, right? So that they can be seen. And here at Micah, what we're really doing is joining millions of people across America and asking for a future free, not from guns, but from gun violence. And this is actually an annual event, this Wear Orange Weekend. It begins tonight, and it will feature virtual and in-person events really all across the nation. From the south side of Chicago to community organizers in Queens, to students all around the country, people will come together to wear orange, to really demand a change. That's why I got this nifty vest on. It turns out that they chose orange, like I said, because people shouldn't die. They should be seen. And the truth is that you can read the Torah from start to finish, and you will not find anything about guns or gun violence. It's an ancient document. But the Torah is rich with resources to speak to issues like this. And if we read the text carefully, there are principles that seem to come up over and over again. And one of those is violence and how it is that we connect and live with one another. We know our tradition, at the end, we will say, L'chaim, we value life and its sanctity. So it's not actually just about gun violence. We're also talking about ideas around power and connection, about our relationship to each other and to our neighbors, how we connect with God or with the holy, and our beliefs and really full understanding of what Judaism has to teach us. So if we say that gun violence leads to the disregard of human life and the dignity, that it doesn't recognize the image of God in every person, and we do here at Micah, and it does this largely because it takes life away so carelessly, then we can begin to talk about violence as sort of a people of faith, as the Jewish people might talk about it. And then we can maybe work our way backward to say, as a people of faith, that this is something that we need to tackle because it resonates with our core belief as a community, as a nation, really. Right? The Torah does say, thou shalt not murder, and it's there for a reason, because it helps us understand how we are to be in relationship with one another. And here in Micah, we fill that space so often with song and with love. You know what also says in the Torah? The Ammonites went in and possessed the land, and they destroyed all the inhabitants of the land. Right? If we read that carefully and attentively, something happens when we hear the word destroy, right? There are associations in my mind with destroy and land, because it makes me think, wait a second, didn't people live there? Were the people the ones destroyed and killed? And what are the implications of that? So there's a way where I think we can let the text jar us, the Torah teach us, and that happens when we read it closely. And it shakes us from the world we live in, just like the events that have happened all over this country. What is even more powerful is personal narrative. So in addition to wearing orange this evening, we also think of the yellow and blue. And we're going to welcome Micah member and incoming president, board chair of the Jewish Federation of Nashville and Middle Tennessee, Leslie Kirby, is with us. And she recently returned from a mission to Poland to assist with Ukrainian refugees. And she's going to share personally a little bit about that story and that journey as well. And you know us, she even brought pictures. So if you saw outside, in honor of this Wear Orange weekend, some of our high school kids who've been involved, there are bracelets. And they are being sold. And they're raising awareness, they're raising money. And on them, they just say, enough. They could say, Dayenu. Largely organized under Julie Greenberg, our education director's leadership, and also Sarah Morgan, who joins us tonight, our assistant religious school director. And she's going to come forward to kick us off by bringing more light into our sanctuary. Come on.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel
We are going to begin warming up with the words of Lecha Dodi. I remind you with the last verse, I'll invite you to rise and welcome the bride in the doors.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabala 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Yishme'anu al ham-yuchad Adonai echad U'shmo echad U'shemo tefelet v'lechilah Lecha Dodi lekrat kala B'nei Shabbat nekabala Lecha Dodi lekrat kala B'nei Shabbat nekabala לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי מקור הברכה בראש מקדם ניסוחה סוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה
Now we rise.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובסהולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה
We remain standing for the words of Hatzi Kaddish.
יקרא ויקרא שמי רבה בעלמא דברה חירותי ימליך מלכותי בחיי חון וביום חון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעלמי Maya Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalel Shmei Kedusha Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Tamiran belma ve'imru.
Amen.
Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
We invite you to take your seats. We got a Lisa Silver original coming, yes? Maybe I have the right words, we'll see.
Let's see. Yes.
All right.
You got 'em. With the setting of the sun, you separate the light from the darkness. We praise you, Adonai, creator of the moon and stars. And as the evening falls, we trust that day and night are equal partners. We thank you for the day and rest in the tranquility of night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chokhma p'teach she'arim ובתבונה משנה עתים ומחליף את הזמנים ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב ערבים.
We connect with Jews past, present, and future, Jews of all space, all time, and all places, with the words of the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
These words come directly out of the Torah. They are words of love, the words of the Ve'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
You know, the service has like a meter to it. I mess with it all the time. You must be able to tell that, right? Like sometimes I'll do happy stuff early, and I did all the orange stuff in the beginning, and it's serious and it's heavy, but it is Shabbat. And it is a time where we're supposed to also feel hopeful. So I can't offer great words of hope on this very heavy subject, but I do know that our people have had hard times and that they've been able to sing through them. So we're going to try the Mika Mocha, and we're going to try and change the vibe. What do you think? Good luck, Miss Lisa. I count on you.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neder b'korash, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. מלכותך ובניך, חוקי הים לפני משה. זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלם, נורא תהילות אוסף אלם.
I almost want to do this in a blind vote, but you don't have to close your eyes. Just be honest. Raise your hand if you read the blurb every week. Just raise your hand if you do. Really? Well, you're regulars. You don't count. Well, you count. I just meant. Okay, so there will be time. I did express, this is a grieving country. And with all the COVID and the stuff we're going through, I don't know that our civil religion gives us enough opportunity for that. But that being the case, we are also a happy place here at Micah. We're going to have a song of lament later, but right now I want to talk about happy stuff for a little bit. So pretend I'm not wearing orange. And somebody share something that's going on in their life that they want other people to know. Roy, thank you for getting us going.
So my Aunt Zelda,
Yeah.
my Aunt Zelda yesterday celebrated her 100th birthday.
100 years is a century. That's a thing. That's pretty, I hope that's in the genes. Yeah, you got something, Alan? I'm going to...
I just celebrated my 84th birthday.
We got some wisdom. Years experience. Okay, what do you got over here?
We're going to Israel on Monday.
Oh. All right, I got to give you guys at least $1 to give away at the ball. Don't leave here without that. Sarah's got something. I'm coming over here.
Jason's sister Julie is having a C-section today. We're new niece and
So you're going to be quasi-parents, aunt and uncle. But you are parents. All right, congratulations for that. That's a cool thing. Love we know it. You got something, Lynn? You know we're wearing orange. Okay.
Well, they sold us red. My daughter's book is now on Amazon for pre-order. It's about OCD and relationships. Dr. Amy Mary Askin is her name.
All right. Order it. You're buying, you got one. What do you got?
I bought a piece of property yesterday in downtown Nashville, and it worked out. It was a real last-minute thing, and it blessed the lady that sold it to me, so it's really good.
Oh, that's a big deal. You got something, Paul?
I woke up this morning.
Okay. Every day we're breathing is definitely a good day. We're going to breathe in deep, maybe. All right, well, listen, without calling people up and having them, sometimes I do that, I just want to say thank you for sharing your joyous things with us, because it makes us feel more joyous as a community to hear about those things going on in the life of our people. So that said, we also have prayers for protection, and we're going to do one of those now.
Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim Ufros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Ufros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake in morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Amen. Amen.
The poet writes, "We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable, without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. But what happens once upon a time happens really all the time." We sing of the covenant now.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asor et ha-Shabbat, לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אור היא לעולם, אור היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם.
So before we rise for our central prayer, I do have to point out that this unending sort of cycle of gun violence that continues to devastate our nation, which really flies in the face of the sanctity of life, whether it's individual shootings or mass shootings, is really antithetical to the Jewish community in the world we're trying to build. So we mourn for school children and families and teachers in all of these places, houses of worship that make us now feel scared, and people just running errands whose lives are irrevocably changed. So the depth of this ongoing tragedy, it does leave us heartbroken and bereft, and finding the right words to speak to this level of hate and harm and trauma, it's really very difficult, both pastorally and personally. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do our Amidah, and we're going to take some time, like we always do, a little bit of silence for personal reflection, and then Miss Lisa is going to lead us out of that period of silence with a Psalm 23 song of lament. So we'll rise together now.
Adonai tzivatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me to still waters, and restores my soul, and guides me in right paths for the sake of God's name. Though I walk in the valley of the darkness, I have no fear, for you are with me. Your rod and staff comfort me. You spread out a table for me in full of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Goodness and mercy will surely follow me all of the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever, forevermore.
Thank you, Miss Lisa. It is on the heels of that we also think about people, not just all over the world, not just in our country, but even in our community here, that are in need of a blessing for healing. So we continue to think of the Sloan family and B.B. Weinstein, of Wayne Ritt, and Sue Snyder, and Alan Frohl. If there are names did not mention that you would like to add to this list, I'll say George Hahn. And all those are needed.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say amen. Yishebeirach imotenu makor habracha lehavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say amen.
Every once in a while, actually pretty frequently, our community does something sort of extraordinary. That would be extraordinary. We go above and beyond and try to make the world a better place. It's hard. Most of us rabbis take a little pen. We go, okay, Davidson County and Williamson County, and maybe I can cover Robertson a little, you know. We have our area where we make our impact. But we know that there are broken parts all over the world. And sometimes it's easy to just go like this, or to change your feed and your social media or your news and not look at some of it. And even though the pictures can be harrowing, what's even more powerful is to personally experience that and then to hear someone share about that personal experience. We are lucky at Micah to have many leaders who not only serve our community, but then go on and serve the larger Jewish community here in Nashville. And Leslie Kirby is one of those, having been very involved in our community, and now is the incoming board chair of the Federation of Jewish Federation of Nashville and Middle Tennessee. And I believe the genesis of the idea came from my colleague, Rabbi Joshua Kulik, to send some sort of mission delegation to take a real close look at Poland and the refugee situation because of Ukraine, and to reach out, as we are all responsible for one another, not just as Jews, but also as humans, and to really have a view of what is going on, to be able to come back and share that. So Leslie's going to come up here. We thank her in advance. I'm going to help her a little bit. I'm going to leave this here if you need my help, and I'll be right behind you. And she's going to share a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Flip, for inviting me to speak here tonight. I was honored and blessed to have the opportunity to go to Poland on behalf of our community. It was Rabbi Kolek's idea. I can't take any credit for it, though I was the one who kind of harangued the Federation to make sure it actually happened. So here we go. This is maybe us. Yeah, all right. So good start. We are 100 days in now to the war in the Ukraine. In that time, 6.8 million refugees have fled the Ukraine so far. That's equivalent to the population of the entire state of Tennessee. Another 8 million people are displaced inside of the Ukraine, so they've had to flee their homes and go to another part of the country. In total, a fourth of the Ukrainian population has been forced from their homes in the last 100 days. It is the largest humanitarian crisis since World War II, having surpassed the previous worst crisis since World War II, which was Syria a few years ago. 3.5 million of these refugees have ended up in Poland. Over 90% of them are women and children. And in Krakow, where we spent most of our trip, it was a population before the war of 750,000 people. They absorbed 200,000 refugees in 4 weeks. That's 20% again of their population in 4 weeks' time. Those are just numbers. You could get them from Google as well as you could sit here and listen to me say them. The power of the trip is in the stories of the people who live there. There are real human beings behind those numbers. And so what I want to share with you tonight is a little bit about those. To start off, I will say that of the 3.5 million refugees in Poland, not a single one of them is homeless. There's no one on the street. The people of Poland, and you know, there's some problems in Poland, right? Like, this is a government who not too long ago made it illegal, literally illegal, to say that the Poles were complicit in the Holocaust, which, wait for it, they were. So I'm not here to tout, the awesomeness of the Polish government, but I can tell you about the Polish people that I met. And contrast with Tennessee. While we were gone on our trip to Poland, the state of Tennessee, not to get too political with you guys, but we basically outlawed homelessness, right? And so we came home to a place like that, having been in a place where they absorbed 3.5 million refugees, and not a single one of them is on the street. So I'm going to just tell you a few stories about people that I met in Poland. I'm going to start with Clementina. She works at the Krakow JCC, and she's the one who was kind of helping us coordinate our trip. I wanted to go to Poland to serve. I didn't just want to fly in and, meet people who work for Jaffe and learn a bunch of statistics and things like that. So the whole point for me of our delegation going to Poland, from the major donors to the, staff members at the Federation, we were going to work. We were going to serve these people. So Clementina, she discovered that she was Jewish a few years ago. Common in former Eastern Bloc countries is that they, for a long time, had to repress their Jewish roots because the Soviets, when they were in charge of that area of the world, weren't so keen on religions of pretty much any kind, and maybe especially not Jews. So Clementina recently discovered that she's Jewish. She now works at the JCC in Krakow. They're the ones who have been coordinating the refugee efforts in the city. And she, with tears in her eyes over a Zoom call, told us, not this time. 80 years ago, Poland got it all wrong. They did everything wrong, and most of the rest of the world too. And they were very committed to not turning their backs and making sure, not this time. And it's a younger generation maybe, whatever, but they have learned some of the mistakes of the past, and they were very, very deeply committed to not letting the same thing happen again. So we started our trip in Warsaw. You can see here, we took 22 bags full of supplies donated by people like you guys, probably some of you. 22 bags full of over 1,000 pounds of donations from our local Nashville Jewish community. We also took $20,000 in donations and then spent another $5,000 buying food on the ground in Poland. Food is a little hard to transport internationally, so we bought the food once we were there. We were feeling really positive about the donations that we brought until we learned from the director of the JCC in Krakow that they're spending $25,000 a day servicing the refugee community in Krakow. So we brought enough for one day. That's it. So that's humbling, believe me, to learn that your contributions, that you feel a little proud of stuff like that, but that was enough for one day. In Warsaw, we focused primarily on learning about the JAFE and JDC. So JAFE is the Jewish Agency for Israel, and the JDC stands for Joint Distribution Committee, Jewish alphabet soup. But they work together in Warsaw, and that's primarily the hub for Jewish Ukrainian refugees who want to make Aliyah. So they were able to set up a consulate in a hotel in Warsaw. So an actual Israeli consulate. They have representatives from the Israeli government there, and they were processing. They've sent over 21,000 people so far to Israel who have made Aliyah. There are also some Jewish adjacent people, so people who are married to people of Jewish descent or something like that, and they don't qualify for Aliyah under the law of return, but Israel has welcomed 15,000 of them as well. And they tell us that there were 200,000 Jews in the Ukraine before the war, and Israel is supposedly prepared to welcome all of them. So that will be a massive operation when and if it happens. They're also finding an increase in people from Russia and Belarus who have discovered that maybe now's a good time to vacate the premises. So there are increases in people wanting to make Aliyah from those areas as well. We met Katya there. She's an employee of JAFE. She was at a conference. Imagine this. You pack for 3 days, you're going to a business conference. She was at a conference when the war started. Her husband is still back in the Ukraine. She talks to him periodically. She started crying when she talked to us. She has no idea, because her husband's fighting not in their town, so they don't know if they still have a house or anything like that. But she is working. One profound thing that we discovered on our trip is that the older refugees, older by a week or two, turn around and help the ones coming behind them. So Katya works at this hotel. They initially had 7 hotels in Warsaw full of refugees. They are making Aliyah to Israel, and so now they're down to only 1 hotel. But there are worries, right, in Poland that if Belarus enters the war or if the Russians start making additional gains. I mean, there were 40 million people, 44 million people in the Ukraine before the war, and if it gets worse, they're expecting to absorb a lot more than 3.5 million people. Let me see if I can... This is us at the grocery store. None of us spoke Polish, so this is Deborah Olashansky, who works for the Federation, and our bus driver, who drove us around while we were there, who very kindly came to the grocery store with us and told us what to buy, and helped us schlep this stuff back. Is there a way to skip and then come back? Okay.
So where do you want to go?
I want to go to this one. Okay. So this is Dominic and Sabina. They were trapped in a small village in the eastern Ukraine. The daughter, I don't know if you can tell from the picture, but she's in a wheelchair, which made it very difficult for them to flee. So they lost their electricity on the 2nd day of the war. They lost their water on the 5th day. There were only 2 places in town where they could get fresh water. And the Russians, just for fun, would set up snipers around the water and just randomly shoot people sometimes for coming to get water for their families. Remember that it was February when the war started, and these areas are a little bit north of us, right? So it was really cold. They were sleeping with stray cats, so when people fled, sometimes they didn't take their pets with them, especially cats. So they were literally sleeping with stray cats on top of them to stay warm at night. They had shelling all night long. The daughter still has night terrors. Sabina still has night terrors, waking up screaming in the middle of the night because of all the Russian shelling. But if you've ever wondered why you give to the Jewish Federation, this is why. Dominic had a sister in Israel, and the sister knew what was going on with them. She reached out and contacted Jaffe, and a car came and picked them up at 2 in the morning and evacuated them to safety. That's the kind of infrastructure that we had on the ground and ready to go when the war happened. So there's that. It's comforting to think that similar help might come to us if we ever needed it. So they'll become one of the 20,000 people who have gone to Israel already. I'm going to switch to, yes. So this is a teacher. She's working with a group of 5-year-old kindergartners in Krakow. When we first went in to meet her, not long after we got there, a terrible sound started coming from her phone, and we were like, what's going on? And it turns out she's still working via Zoom with some of her students who haven't been able to flee the Ukraine. So she's still teaching. And what the sound was an air raid siren. And so it's warning her that she has to tell her little 5-year-old children that she's working with to flee to their basements because a bomb's about to hit near where they are. So that was our introduction. I'm going to play a little bit of this video that just shows you these little 5-year-olds are trying to learn English. What's your name? Nice to meet you. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
I'm Lena.
I'm Safika.
Nice to meet you, Safika. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Hello.
Hello.
I'm Lena.
I'm Lena.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. So the girl in the blue sitting to the right of the girl with the pink jacket on, her dad died the week before we got there in the war. The girl sitting just to the side of her, you can't really see her in this picture. She and her mother haven't heard from her dad in a month. They don't know if he's dead or alive. So that's what these little children are dealing with every day. And their bright, smiling faces are there trying to learn English during all this. We also, whoops.
I'll do it.
I want the little girl with the stuffed animal.
You see, it's not easy doing that.
It's
Okay.
not.
Yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Or the blowing bubble.
No, the stuffed animal first, and then the.
Okay.
Okay. So this is Sasha. We were asked right before our trip, which we threw together kind of last minute. They told us that because all these families had to flee very quickly and take as little as possible with them, that none of the children had toys. That's not a priority when you're kind of fleeing for your lives. So they asked us, if possible, if we could bring some stuffed animals. And so we reached out to the Akiva school, and they donated, so gratifying, like hundreds of stuffed animals for us to take. And Sasha is here hugging one of the stuffed animals that we gave her. And then the children were so happy with the stuffed animals that we went out and bought more as part of our donations that we made to them. These children are using the bubbles. So just a small little bright bit of positivity. The line at the JCC to get supplies, they're giving direct supplies as well as funding other organizations to help refugees. So the line twists all the way around their building, and a lot of the, 90% of the refugees are women and children. They don't have any place to take their kids, and so they bring the kids with them when they come to get supplies. So they get really bored standing in line, so we were giving them bubbles to try to lighten the load a little bit. The little girl that you saw at the beginning of that video, starting to blow bubbles, her name was Judith, and her mother's pregnant. She's one of over 350 women right now that they know of in Krakow who are pregnant. They're going to give birth alone in the coming months without their partners, having to rely on the kindness of strangers to have even their most basic needs met. There were some light moments on our trip. So it turns out that basically what they needed the most help with was kind of schlepping supplies back and forth into this store that they have set up at the JCC. And the store is free, but they still call it a store. So, you know, they take in donations and then you put them on the shelves. And of course, the men on our trip, Deborah and I were off doing other things, so this wasn't us. I can make fun of other people. So our men decided, having been there for one day, that they had a much more efficient system for loading the shelves than the women who had been working there for months. So poor Deborah and I come back, and they've basically put them in timeout, right? So like Rabbi Kulik, Steve Hirsch, if you know him, Fred Zimmerman, and Jacob Kleinrock, right? They're in timeout because they've like tried to mansplain how to run this shop to Olga and Natalia, and let me tell you, like they were taking it seriously. So if you ever see Steve Hirsch, ask him what he learned in terms of Polish words, because what he learned was niet. That's what they got told over and over again. So light moments. There were also devastating, heartbreaking moments. So one of the women we met didn't want to share her name. She got raped by Russian soldiers before they fled. She then fled with her mother-in-law and children, and her mother-in-law then started blaming her for the attack, so they had to be separated. So in those moments where we almost didn't feel like we could keep going with it, Rabbi Kulik was there, and he reminded us that we're seeing them, we're looking them in the eye, we're talking with them, we're coming back to tell their stories to other people. And even though we only brought enough supplies for one day, they wouldn't be hungry today because we were there. And that was comforting. It was still a little scary, but you hope that there are going to be other people coming. So it reminded us not to get overwhelmed when it was overwhelming. So we're 100 days into a war that will definitely last another 100 days and could last 1,000 more days. We don't know when this war will end. And I know that with guns and gas prices and COVID that still won't go away, there's a lot to think about. But if you have the chance to go to Poland and help these refugees and serve, go. If someone asks you to give and you're able to give, please give. This is what we do. We welcome strangers and we help the needy. So we have a short attention span in this country, a really short attention span. I was talking with Michael before the services, and you know, the Ukraine is already like the 4th or 5th story down now after 100 days, and it's gonna go lower and lower. Don't forget, don't look away, don't forget our brothers and sisters in the Ukraine. Thank you.
Round of applause, please. Leslie, thank you for going and for sharing and for your next role in leadership in the Jewish community. It's not an accident that I call the Aleinu a responsibility prayer, because we have the ability to respond. I'm going to invite everyone at this point to please rise. I see the Averys. They're my door openers. Anyone else who wants to come join them can.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'teit gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyeh haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad.
The funerals have begun in Texas, and we in our community this year continue to mourn for Norman Heyman and Stephen Cooper, Evelyn Richmond, Arnold Hyatt, Walter Stern, T.J. Cohen, Marvin Oakes, Rabbi Stephen Sager, and Father Joseph Breen. We also recall on the anniversaries of their deaths, Anne Chernus, Anthony Belmore Froll, Alice Pauline Hill Froll, Benjamin Parker, Bryn Marion Brooker, David Chernus, Dr. Richard E. Heller, Elizabeth Ann Griffin, Fanny Cohen, Jeffrey Gellin, Julia Richard, Lillian Geller, Mildred Hutner, Sam Harold Tuckman, Samuel Bedney, Saul Smith, William Williamson, Lucy Solomon. If there's any names I've neglected to mention or just ones you'd like to say aloud. We add to that list all people who have been a blessing to humanity, and we join together in the words of Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayachon uv'yomachon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam ulalmei amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal, shmei dekudisha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba min Shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mroma, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. We say zikronam levracha, that their memory should always live on as a blessing. Okay, sit briefly. Don't get comfortable. I'm going to do the announcements quickly, and then we will make a kiddush. Tomorrow morning, you have the opportunity to study with the soon-to-be Rabbi Lily Goldstein. She's a delight, and she's going to be at Zoom at 9 a.m. You can find the link on our website. On Sunday evening, in honor of Shavuot, the receiving of the Torah, one of the books we look at is the book of Ruth. It's a delightful allegory. It's only 4 chapters. Will only take an hour. Spend it with me, 7 p.m. on Zoom. Again, you can find the links on the website. I do believe that Micah Reads on Monday, June 6th at 7 p.m. will be in person. Or I guess you can come in by Zoom, but come in person. And they'll be discussing The Perfume Thief by Timothy Shafford. Mahjong takes place, of course, in the Social Hall 12:30 on Tuesdays. Our political conversations continue on Thursdays with Shmooze and View in the libraries at 10:30 a.m. Rabbi Lori loves being with the Women's Circle so much that she stuck another one on the calendar for June 10th at noon. If you could RSVP early, that would be great. Also available information on our website. This is powerful. If you've lost a loved one, if you're experiencing grief, Rabbi Lori and Tony Jacobson of JFS, Jewish Family Services, will be hosting Beads of Grief. It's sort of a creative arts programming using symbolic beads that become metaphors, really, of remembrance. And that's going to be on Wednesday, June 15th at noon here at Micah. This is going to be fun. Mark your calendars. I mean, it's a meeting, but it's going to be fun. Wednesday, June 15th, our annual meeting will also be on Zoom at 7 p.m. You can register on our website, and then on the following Friday night, that 17th, we'll do our installation. We'll install our new board members, and we'll also honor our outgoing board members. If you've not checked out Vika's very own podcast, Season 1, Getting to Know Jew, it's available. And finally, I will remind you that you can always find out more and more about us, not just on the website, on social media. Quick as I could, we're back up. We do a kiddush, a closing song.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'hava uvratzon hinkilanu zikaro lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lamikra kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshcha v'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Oh, say shalom b'mamav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'yakol Yisrael. Imru amen. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu. Yakol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu, Yalko Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom.